The postseason push dives down south in a meeting with the Lady in Black where it comes down to 2 more races to decide the playoff field. Live from the virtual Darlington Raceway in virtual Darlington, South Carolina, we welcome you to the penultimate race of the regular season for Season 5 of the 4 Wide Racing Cup Series and our coverage right here on MaxSpeedTV. So happy to have you along for the ride as we continue to get closer to playoff competition. We're up atop the broadcast booth here in Darlington. My name is Kenneth Bueno, and things are starting to get down to a crunch. There are only 2 chances, including tonight, to make it to the playoffs if you're a driver stuck beneath at least the top 15 in point standings. And here at Darlington, the track as tough as can be, it's why it's called the track that's too tough to tame. We might just see either a brand new winner, somebody dominating the competition, or maybe something in between. But there are many factors coming into tonight's race. One of them, of course, being the playoff standings and how things are going to fare out coming into this race. We'll take a look at our point standings. This is how it all settles through after 18 races and counting. Lawson Peel still toppling the charts at 6 wins total. Everybody from Peel down to newly minted winner Jaden Porter in the 28. All locked in via win. So they've got no worries coming into this race. That also includes former winner at this track in Season 4, Eric Schaefer. But everybody from Curtis Kelly on through Michael Newbraw and Kevin D'Elia, even then around the cut line, those guys not necessarily safe. Maybe for Kelly, Hill, Lounslugger, and a couple of others, they've got a little more wiggle room, but for everybody else, and most notably that cut line at around 16th and 17th, that's really where things are getting hairy. And the driver beneath the cut line right now, at least right below it, beneath Kevin D'Elia, that's the driver of the 10, Kyle Benson, who walked away with a clutch win last season to get himself into the playoffs. He finds himself in a similar and eerily similar position this evening here at Darlington. Again, only 2 chances left, so if you're Kyle Benson, you really have to dial things in. But the good thing for Benson, history kind of falls in his favor. He is one of the former winners of the last 2 seasons here at Darlington. Of course, in Season 3. Season 4, we had Eric Schaefer and that fantastic last lap pass by Colin Forrester, and then Kyle Benson being able to win the season prior. Let's take a look at Darlington Raceway in Darlington, South Carolina before we take things to the track here on MaxSpeedTV. Our images, of course, provided to us by Google Earth. Darlington Raceway, known as one of the toughest, if not the toughest track to drive on the oval surface. It's 1.366 miles, 2.198 kilometers, and opened back in 1950. And because of the pond that's right on the outskirts of turns 3 and 4, that's why you have a tighter radius around that sector of the track. Meanwhile, turns 1 and 2 a lot wider, and it is reflective of that. In the banking, you'll find 25 degrees of banking in turns 1 and 2, only 23 in turns 3 and 4, 2 to 3 degrees, give or take, on each of the straightaways. And while it looks like from a first glance, at least from the overhead view, that there's a lot of space here on the racetrack, there really isn't. We're going to be talking about that all night long, the narrowness of this Darlington surface and how that's really going to affect the driver base and how that's going to make driving this track ultimately much tougher and making passes. You're going to be a lot more methodical here tonight than you would, let's say, at a Kansas or even like a Richmond or any of the other tracks for the most part that we visited so far in this season. Let's take a look at our schedule of what we have knocked down and what we have yet to come here in this 4 Wide Racing Cup Series schedule. Of course, we did have Dover just last week, Jaden Porter being able to take his first win of the season there just about a week ago. Darlington tonight, and then, of course, Daytona 1 week from this evening, or at least 2 weeks from this evening as it's showing on the calendar. That's going to be under the night, and with 100 laps on tap, that's the final race of the regular season. So for all those that are really worried about making it into the playoffs if they don't have a win, that's going to be their very last shot. And then we kick off the playoffs in late May at Bristol Motor Speedway, Charlotte, Roval, and Pocono to close off the first round. Charlotte reappears in the schedule in the form of the normal oval to kick off the second round of playoff action. Talladega, Phoenix to close things off, and then, of course, our Championship 5 finale in South Florida at Homestead Miami Speedway. And so we've got a lot of things for you, a lot of different variations of track, but most importantly, the thing to look at the most, those 2 races, Darlington tonight, Daytona in a couple of weeks. Well, drivers are sitting right behind the iRacing official pace car. It means it's our time to take a look at your starting grid. See exactly where every driver and your favorite driver will be lining up here tonight in the penultimate race of the regular season. Daniel Michel, the California native, puts up the fastest time in qualifying at a 28.911. He's joined alongside by the 55 of Joe Sanchez, sporting a beautiful paint scheme this evening. We'll also touch on that in just a little bit. Last week's winner at Dover Motor Speedway, Jaden Porter, looks to go 2 in a row. He starts in third. AJ Green in the 48 alongside him in P4. And then you'll look to those doubled up in row number 3, the 91 of Adam Alashire for Trackhouse Racing inside the top 5, Craig Lautenslager, driver who does so well at Darlington Raceway but still doesn't have that win. He's caught up in P6. Lawson Pugh, defending series champion. We've seen a couple of weeks throughout the season where he has not taken a time in qualifying. Tonight, though, he does put a time of 29 flat. He'll be joined alongside by Scott Healy in that 4th row. Eric Schaefer, your defending winner from this race last season at Darlington. He is 9th. Kyle Benson, one of those drivers that is beneath the cut line going into this evening's race. He'll try his best from P10 at the green flag. Curtis Kelly is 11th. Colin Forrester behind him in 12th. And then drivers lined up in 13th and 14th, row 7. Austin Reedy in the 96. Brandon Banks in the number 54 for Drinkin' Bros Racing. Michael Newbra is 15th. Tyler Murray is P16. Row number 9, you'll find Christopher Bishop and the number 00 of Jesse Prees. Prees is the first driver out of the many not to take time in qualifying. Den Hervudden in the number 36 is 19th. Tony Kibbett is 20th. And then comes 21st place Kevin D'Elia in the 53. The 33 of Tyler Warner. Alongside in 22nd, Timothy Cook for Trackhouse Racing in the 98 is 23rd. Brandon Gillis bringing up the rear of the field in 24th place. There's the whole field here at Darlington Raceway, now rolling behind the pace car. We'll just have at least a lap or so before we get things started here at the Lady in Black. Let's take a look at the weather and how things will fare at the sky. It is 69 degrees on the air temp, 72 degrees track temperature, so it is going to be a rather cool evening, and already the lights are on. We're at the sunset here in Darlington. We're probably going to end this race under the nightfall. Winds to the southeast at around 2 miles an hour. It's a clear day in Sim, so it is beautiful to go racing, no doubt about it. No problems about the wind, no problems about the sky, and the track temperature, which was obviously a very different concern from last week at Dover, where there was a really, really hot track temperature in the 115, 117 degree range on the concrete surface. Tonight, none of that, but obviously that does not make driving this track a lot easier in that sense. Daniel Michel in the 25, looking for what would be his 2nd win this season. Of course, picked up his 1st in the campaign at Road America in that stellar run to the finish against Lawson Peel. Joe Sanchez, also in the same bank. He's got a couple of wins of his own, his most recent at the 1 mile track in Gateway. Ready for the green here from Darlington. Michel and Sanchez to the green in race number 19 of season 5. Through lap 1, Joe Sanchez takes control of the race above Daniel Michel. It didn't really take him all too long. AJ Green, Craig Lautenslager, and Scott Healy performing a 5-car breakaway as of lap number 1. And already some side-by-side action around the midfield. There was a battle for P7. Kyle Benson looking to the inside of Adam Alashire. And one thing that you've probably already noticed through the first 2 laps from a majority of the drivers in tonight's field, they are sporting throwback paints. Of course, as with tradition here at Darlington Raceway, it is rather familiar to run a throwback car representing a favorite driver, a favorite time period in the sport, or just anything in general. Maybe the sponsor you have on your car each and every week, whether it be fictional or not. And here's the 10 of Kyle Benson sporting a Danica Patrick inspired paint scheme. Of course, this is from all the way back in 2014, where the 10 of Kyle Benson is throwing back to, and this is the look from Danica Patrick's number 10, the Chevy SS that she drove in the Cup Series not too long ago. It's hard to believe that that's almost 10 years of difference between that car and what we're seeing tonight, 2023 NASCAR Next Gen Chevrolet Camaros. But that's a look with the number 10 of Kyle Benson as he tries to get around Lawson Peel, your defending series champion. That is currently a scuffle for P6 right now on the racetrack. You see them both single file, but drivers up in front, side by side. Craig Lounslauger on the inside here of Daniel Michel. And Craig Lounslauger, a driver who's been so good at this Darlington Raceway, whether it be last season's edition of this race or even back in season number 3 where Kyle Benson ultimately won that contest. A 25, Lusto scraping the wall at the exit of turn 4, and how about 3 wide on the front straightaway? All of them trying to get around for third, and they almost make contact, but there's a big point as they make door-to-door contact. Healy almost struck the outside wall. And for the moment, we're going to be staying under green. Healy's going to work his way by, so will Michel, and they go side by side. Further back, Lawson Peel, helped by the 99 of Colin Forrester, riding on board with the number 12. He tries to get through the 3 and 4 on the outside. And here we give you a nice perspective of what it's like to drive this track. With the car in trouble on the inside lane, we're going to try to identify who that is, but it looks like that might be Timothy Cook in the 98. Indeed it is. Ripped off front end. That's a Bill Elliott 1994, I believe, throwback. Or 1998 is he's going to be limping it on the side. Caution flag is out. Looks like an incident near the halfway mark of the field. And that is former winner Eric Schaefer, who appears to be damaged. In 96 of Austin Reedy heading for the pit lane. But for the 3 of Schaefer, problems here in the early goings. Lap number 8 already, our first caution. It was side by side with Reedy where we saw the incident happen. And here came Jaden Porter, and right there, it looked like they were going 3 wide, and the 3 just absolutely swipes across the nose of the 96, and Reedy goes hard into the outside wall. There's the 42 machine, Christopher Bishop, trying to get all around it. And that was a really big crash from the 3. Here's the look on board with Schaefer. Just a hard hit there for Schaefer. Obviously didn't know that Porter was going to get there in enough time, or maybe just tried to send a block to Porter as he was getting that run going. And obviously Austin Reedy, the innocent bystander in all of that. There's Eric Schaefer on the pit lane. Looks like Austin Reedy already his way through. Looks like he's come back in for some extra damage repair. Now, these drivers are given 1 fast repair in each and every race. We do say that every time we go green here in the 4 Wide Racing Cup Series, just to let those who are tuning in for the first time know. But through a 146 lap affair, you probably don't want to be burning that fast repair so early on. And while Eric Schaefer has to take a tow, he dropped 2 laps on the track. Austin Reedy is doing his best to mitigate going under a lap. He is currently 19th and still on pit road, but this time going to get this car repaired. And it looks like he has burned off the fast repair. Another driver who has done so, Brandon Gillis, and then Timothy Cook, who we saw hit the pit lane just about a lap or so, right around where that caution flew out for the first time. So Joe Sanchez taking an early control of this race. Daniel Michel on a free fall as he's dropped to 18th, but he did apparently come down pit road when those drivers did under that caution. So here comes Michel again, and not sure whether he's making this for a reason or whether this is just a top off on fuel, but Michel with the early jump at the front already starting to lag back, and so AJ Green has taken control of second. Scott Healy has been able to hold on to third despite the charges from Craig Lounslauger and the number 12 of Lawson Peel. So we continue our look around from the throwback scene. And one of the drivers with the throwback is the number 55 of Joe Sanchez, who's sporting a very interesting paint scheme. This one in commemoration of Ward Burton, his number 22 Caterpillar Dodge that he drove all the way back in 2001. It's hard to believe, again, it's almost 22 years of distance between what we're seeing right now on the sim and even in real life versus this car that ran back in '01. Got the LIF podcast colors and the logo in the inspiration of the Caterpillar logo, but it is a beautiful, beautiful race car and one of the many that we're seeing tonight here from Darlington Raceway. Another one is that number 48 of AJ Green, who, if you've seen these colors before, you probably understand what this car is all about. This is an Alex Bowman inspired paint scheme. And we can't really fit the picture in the frame, not necessarily the highest quality. And obviously with BK Racing not being at the front of the field, it's kind of hard to tell. But AJ Green sporting this Alex Bowman paint scheme with Dr. Pepper on the car. And also funny to think about BK Racing's history as a team. They obviously shut down at around 2018. They used Dr. Pepper colors while not actually being sponsored by the Dr. Pepper Corporation. That was until then a couple of years later, where Bubba Wallace for 2311 Racing had Dr. Pepper on the car officially. But this is a throwback to Alex Bowman's days as a back marker, and obviously wishing him the best of recovery from his broken vertebrae that he sustained in a sprint car crash not too long ago. All right, we're doubled up for the restart. Here will be lap number 11 of 146, that early caution involving Austin Reedy in the 96, the number 3 of Eric Schaefer, and you can also count in the 28 of Jaden Porter. Although Porter did not sustain that much damage in that crash, he's going to continue to troop on in P9. It's Joe Sanchez in the 55 with the discretion when we take the restart zone. AJ Green alongside him in row number 1. At the exit of turn 4, pace cars down. The 55 will bring us to a restart, and we'll see if we can get a proper long green flag run. Sanchez with an early jump. Healy looking for second, going for turn 1. AJ Green being able to hold off Healy on the outside lane, who appeared to have backed out at the exit of turn 2. And here comes Kyle Benson looking at the rear end of Craig Laumslugger, and 2 more throwbacks. We already talked about the Patrick one, but there's obviously one bearing on the number 13. That is a Smokey Unique throwback. He drove a 1967, his Chevelle, but this time sported on a Toyota Camry XSE. So the 13 going to be looking on Healy, the fellow Toyota up in front, but still single file. AJ Green going to try and get over that 55 of Sanchez. For the most part, you're going to see single file racing here at Darlington, but that is typical of what you're expected to see at a track like this, just because obviously it is so hard to drive, number 1, but number 2, the track is so narrow in the middle of the corners that it is so hard to make passes happen. And right there you saw AJ Green just up the road take the lead away from Joe Sanchez, but that was in the entrance of turn 1. That was not in the middle of the corner. And you'll see here the dashed lines on the bottom end of turns 1 and 2 and in 3 and 4 starts about right there. And while you see a bunch of pavement from the top of the outside safer barrier all the way to that inside wall, the usable grooves at this track are very minimal. And so once you get past that dashed line on the bottom, you don't have a lot of grip, if not any grip at all. And so you're going to have to deal with a lot of issues if you're trying to make passes. And so that's why you see a lot of these overtakes happen on the straightaways, not necessarily in the corners. If you're here at Darlington, you're in the mid-pack, and you want to make positions up, like let's say Alishire is on Lawson Peel, you want a better setup out of either turns 2 and turns 4, and then make the pass on the straightaway before going into the next corner, where you can hop on the brakes and the other driver most likely would back out, because if you go side by side, especially in turns 1 and 2, you're probably going to end up in an incident in some place at some time. On board with Jaden Porter, the number 28. No throwback here for the Allied Chevrolet, so sporting the Alex Bowman colors of the present. Trying to hold off Curtis Kelly and looking ahead at Adam Alishire. Lawson Peel, who get involved in an incident. Peel sliding up the track in 3 and 4. Minimal damage on the rear end. There's Alishire's car as he wiggles it back and forth. And we'll try and see exactly what happened between these two. This skirmish happening just inside the top 10. And right here out of turn 2, contact between the 91 and the 12. And that could have been way worse for the 12, although he just gets rear-ended by his teammate, Brandon Banks. That's a hard hit there for Brandon Banks. But look at the save here by Peel. This could have easily been a nose into the inside wall, but somehow kept it out of trouble. And right here out of turn 2, just chase it down the track, and they both make minimal contact. Obviously no intention by either two, and Brandon Banks just comes pummeling in there on the rear end of the 12. And we're probably awaiting to see if there's any engine damage on the 54's machine, who was trying to get out of the mess, but unfortunately, it came up right in front of him, on board with Banks. His teammate right in front. Oof. Tough hit for Banks there, and you can tell just how much damage is assessed to the front end of the car, as Lawson Peel had to limp that one back. And speaking of Brandon Banks, there he is, trying to get damage repaired, and it looks like Lawson Peel also in the same vein. Now, none of these drivers, it appears, are using their fast repair, probably Brandon Banks out of all the others, but for the 12 and for the 91, their damage rather minimal, and so they're just going to take the time, and away goes Alashire. Banks does trigger the fast repair this early on, and so that will hand the lead over to AJ Green, as he took the lead away from Sanchez, and that 55 had dropped back to third out on the racetrack. Let's continue to take a look at the throwback colors represented in tonight's 4-Wide Racing Cup Series field from Darlington Raceway. Next one on tap, this one right here. And while this isn't necessarily a NASCAR throwback by any stretch of the imagination, this is a beautiful throwback nonetheless, and this is a tribute to the Martini Racing Porsches that they used to race, and not necessarily a year specified, but just this style of car with the stripes, the blue, the light blue, the dark blue, the red, and obviously the Martini logos adorned on the Porsche. This is the picture taken at the Nürburgring Nordschleife track, and so obviously you can tell from the surface and the corner specifically, but we saw this throwback last season out of this 99, but obviously it's a scheme that never fails, and the 99 who fell just short of this race win one season ago, where Eric Schaefer got by him on the last lap, last corner, looking for some revenge as he currently rolls in P6. But again, so far, not many green flag runs. We've seen a lot of these cautions come out rather quickly. And so we're under yellow again at lap number 19 of 146. And of course, through last week's Dover Motor Speedway race, where Jaden Porter was able to lock in his first win of the campaign, leading 107 laps en route to that win. Lawson Peel, who's now sitting back in 19th, he finished second in that affair, and what has been a myriad of second place and third place finishes in this series. Obviously, he has 6 wins on the campaign, so he's been able to find victory lane, no doubt about it, but he's just been on a streak, and he's been able to find himself in scenarios where he finishes second, short to the leader, every single time. Alashire in that 91 came home third in that race, and Alashire currently runs in the 17th place position, just a couple of spots ahead of that 12. Remember, both of them involved in that crash. A look on board with AJ Green as we're going to get set to get the green here this time at lap number 21 of 146. Different look at the front of the field. AJ Green taking the outside on the restart, and it looks like Scott Healy will join him on the bottom side. Scott Healy definitely has been making some decent progress since the start of this race, and we did not see him last week at Dover Motor Speedway. He's kind of been in and out throughout this season, but every time he shows up, he does have a fast car, and Healy obviously is a fast driver in this series overall. He is a former champion in the grand scheme of things. So Healy will try his best to get around that 48 when we get to turn 1. Craig Lownslugger and Joe Sanchez now settling in row number 2. Lap 21 of 146 underway. The 48 leads him to the first corner. And already scuffling for P2 behind that 48. The 13 tried underneath that 64 and could not break free as Colin Forrester finds a way around. Joe Sanchez in the 55 in 3 and 4. And Kyle Benson going at it with Jaden Porter. That's P6. Battle on the racetrack, still side by side. At a 4, that'll settle out to single file. Curtis Kelly, bit of contact, and now Austin Ritty breaks into the fold at turn 1. Curtis Kelly, we saw him riding behind Porter prior to that caution between the number 12 and the 91. There goes through Daniel Michel, your pole sitter, who has been struggling to get back to the front after that early fall off. And he's now looking to the inside and almost about contact at the exit of 4 with the 71. And they'll keep things straight, and those are the only two side-by-side for the moment. AJ Green has been able to hold off Healy by around 0.3 of a second and counting. So in his own league, as it stands in the Dr. Pepper car, they remain all single file through the field. Curtis Kelly able to hold off Daniel Michel, and now going to try and look around to Austin Reedy in the number 96. As there's Jaden Porter trying to grab some of the draft off of the 10 as they go side by side around P11. And that is Brandon Banks in this fight, turn 1. And that was short-lived between himself and the 33 of Warner. Now the two Tylers going at it. Murray in the 16. Tyler Warner in the number 33. Another throwback, a beautiful one, and these shiny colors on behalf of the number 16, your league owner, and sporting a very, very interesting throwback that I don't think I've seen sported by anyone in any series, at least that I broadcasted, as the 16 does get around the 33. That fight settled for 12th at lap 25. This is inspired by a truck, not necessarily a Cup Series car, but by a truck driven by legend Ron Hornaday in his Napa Chevrolet Silverado. Obviously, this truck dating back to 1997, where he used to drive in the Craftsman Truck Series, and what formerly used to be called as the NASCAR Super Truck Series, but nonetheless, gold colors with the red and the blue. Definitely looks good under the lights here at Darlington. And so Murray trying to continue to amp his momentum up by the time we get to the playoffs, because as it stands throughout the fight in the point standings, Tyler Murray is rather close to that cut line. He is about 15th right now on the charts. So we'll see what the 16 can do. Him and Tyler Warner are pretty much in that same spot around the cut line in the playoffs. But Murray looking to make a championship hunt. He's built up some consistent finishes over the year. And so we'll see if he can cap things off here tonight from Darlington. Top two have broken away. Healy has caught up to the 48, so crunched in that 0.3 of a second gap that Green had, and now up to 0.1 of a second between those two. Craig Lounslugger kind of falling back in the ranks. He sits in third, but no pressure from behind. Joe Sanchez has been kind of eyeing in on that position, but he still has to deal with Colin Forrester, Jaden Porter, and Kyle Benson. Those drivers all in around a quartet, maybe make it a quintuplet with the 96 of Austin Reedy not too far behind. And so again, you're just looking at setups out of the corner on the straightaways, and you can get a good look here from Kyle Benson's machine, former winner here. See, he looks on the number 99 of Forrester and goes up a gear. These drivers are shifting down to fourth in the middle of the corner. And right there at the entrance of turns 3 and 4, that number 10 does not hesitate to grab fourth gear. And right here, good setup out of 4, gets the draft off the 99. Right about here is where you can side draft, make a move going into the corner. And by that time, Forrester, who's on the top side, has to back out because you make such a weird arc in turns 1 and 2. You slide up the track in the center and then roll it back down at the exit of the corner to avoid hitting the outside wall. If you're that car on the top, side by side, you're probably going to get stuffed into the safer barrier, or you're going to make that mistake yourself. And it looks like the Forrester machine has just done that. Grabs the outside wall. Here comes Porter making a move for P6. And there goes Austin Reedy. Also just behind. Almost looked at it at the exit of turn 4, but just thought better of it. And goes back to turn 1 with a head of steam. AJ Green, by the way, has fallen off the race lead. Scott Healy was able to find his way by. And so Healy looking to pull away in clean air, and that last time by, a very, very stark difference between the two when they cross the line. Healy with a 29.175. AJ Green currently 29.455. Now, it's a little closer this time by. Healy at a 29.36, and like we said, Green with that 29.4. But nonetheless, it looks like that 64 built for this longer run, as these drivers have not pitted on this set of Goodyear Eagles. They have 4 extra sets on the lane, 5 total, including that one that they start the race with. And here at Darlington, where it really rips up the tires each and every chance it gets, it is definitely going to be imperative to make sure that you can get some fresh tires at the right moments. Here's another throwback sported by the number 96 of Austin Reedy. Now this one dates back to the late 90s. In fact, actually the early 2000s. but did run in the late 90s, at least in terms of 1999 and I believe a bit of 1998. This is the number 96 of Austin Reedy, and the same number was sported by Andy Houston back in 2001. This is the car that Reedy is throwing back to. It's a McDonald's drive-thru Ford Taurus, obviously a different manufacturer with the Chevrolet Camaro tonight, but nonetheless, it looks gorgeous, and you see there with the front end number on either side. I don't really think it takes away from the paint scheme. It is a beautiful car, and the McDonald's colors are definitely non-mistakable. You see those colors, you understand it's the McDonald's brand, and obviously McDonald's with that long-standing partnership with NASCAR and now the 2311 racing team with Bubba Wallace. Kind of funny to see that Dr. Pepper and McDonald's are both sporting on Bubba Wallace's cars these days, but both in different throwbacks not too long ago. But a lot of pressure behind that 96 from the 99 of Colin Forrester, while they're trying to catch up to Jaden Porter. Fell that spot short to the number 10 of Kyle Benson, who just tags the outside wall a bit as your top two continue to run away. Right now, it is an all Scott Healy, AJ Green showcase at the front of the field here from Darlington Raceway. We'll take a moment and go side by side, but you won't miss a thing as we continue our coverage of the penultimate race of the regular season.
Who wins the race? Kerwin! It is Femi Olat, the sophomore!
I give it all that I got.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Back live from the virtual Darlington Raceway in Darlington, South Carolina. We continue our coverage of the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series as we close off the regular season in just a couple of races. On board with Jaden Porter on the 28, has a nice look at the battle. Currently ahead of him for 5th, that is Kyle Benson trying to hunt on the number 55 is Sanchez, but Austin Reedy right behind with a statement to make, although Benson will tank slap the outside wall, and that'll lose him some ground on Sanchez. It might reel in Austin Reedy, but he does not get a good run off of the corner. Now, remember the drivers that were at the front fighting for position, who got into that crash on the back straightaway. Here's one of them, Adam Alishire, trapped back in P14 right now. Has definitely not had the best recovery, and neither has your defending champion Lawson Peel, a couple of spots in front. P12 is where the 12 car sits at the moment, and a driver who claims that Darlington is not his best track, just looking to really survive this evening. Currently trying to hold his own, and Curtis Kelly, the next car right in front, as Tyler Murray splits the difference between the 12 and the 91 as it stands. We did see one car go to the inside lane, lose a bunch of spots. That was the number 00 of Jesse Preece. There he is, sporting a Dale Earnhardt Sr. throwback car. And then we did have one car just fall 2 laps down. That is the number 9 of Brandon Gillis. There he is, out on the racetrack. Well, we continue our theme of throwback cars here from Darlington Raceway. One of those is this one right here, the number 13 of Craig Lounslogger, who is one of the best drivers at this track in this series, but sporting a car that goes all the way back to 1967. This is Smokey Yunick's 1967 Chevy Chevelle that he used to drive in the Cup Series. Obviously, Smokey Yunick is one of the most infamous personalities in the NASCAR history world, and as we commemorate NASCAR's 75th anniversary in 2023, it's nice to see that Lounslogger is tracing it back to Smokey's roots in the Cup Series with his Chevelle right here on his Toyota Camry. And you can see even from the light reflections in turns 3 and 4, he's got the gold metallic feel to it. He's got the spec maps. It is a car that is destined for night racing and one that has lived up to fame in the NASCAR world and in history. And that 13 looking to make history this evening tonight. Remember, he did make the Championship 5 last season via a win at Charlotte, but we probably would have been talking about a win at Darlington to get him into that very same race last season. He was so fast here, but unfortunately fell short. And you can say the same thing about what happened the season before, where he lost that race to Kyle Benson. Lounslogger was in a dogfight with that number 10 machine, but in the same vein, fell short of the race win. That 13 still looking for win number 1, and the track too tough to tame. He has, by the way, caught up to your leaders, set a 29.9 at the cross of the stripe. Healy and Green set 30 flats, respectively, and while that isn't far off, at least by not that much, Healy and Green are still falling back regardless, and that 13 is slowly getting larger and larger in that rear view mirror. So we'll probably see whether things happen as Joe Sanchez under fire from Austin Reedy, both of them side by side in turn 1. And Reedy, coming off of a no-show at Dover Motor Speedway, did not make the race. Joe Sanchez, on the other hand, did. He finished in 4th after starting 9th. What was a consistent race for the LIF Podcast Chevrolet. And so Austin Reedy looking to pick things up, although this 96 car, not necessarily in a tough spot at all. He's already got a win this season. He doesn't necessarily need to think about points racing after picking that win up at Atlanta Motor Speedway earlier in the year. This 96 really just kind of racing for his own consistency's sake and running for momentum, obviously. That's something that you really want to have, and something that might be overlooked in this run to the playoffs. Obviously, our biggest concern, our biggest thoughts are with the points fights and how that's going to work around the cut line, who's going to get in, who's not going to get it in. Most importantly, which new drivers are going to get to victory lane, much like we saw with Jaden Porter last week at the Monster Mile. But you're also thinking about those who have wins this season, who don't need them, but obviously if they can get them, they'll take it. But the biggest thing that you have to take note of if you're a driver like Austin Reedy or a driver like an AJ Green, where you have wins this season, you don't need to think about points racing, as Reedy gets way loose at the exit of 4, trying to get underneath Lounslogger for 3rd, and what might be a tertiary car in this battle for 2nd, actually, into turn 1. You're thinking a lot about building momentum, building consistency, and gaining a lot of positive morale by the time you get to the end of the race at Daytona, and then when you kick off the playoffs at Bristol. Because the worst thing that can happen is that you miss a couple of races, you're not on your game, you're not focused, and then all of a sudden at Bristol, when you start the playoffs and when you really need to step things up and be a great driver like these drivers are, you start to falter a little bit because you're trying to get back into that rhythm. And while other drivers who have prepped from the regular season, they're building up their momentum, they're already ready to go, you're kind of already on the back foot. So that's the biggest thing for drivers with wins. They're obviously not fighting for playoff spots. They've already got them, but they need to fight for their credibility, need to fight for that momentum when they end the season. And so you're looking at drivers like Jaden Porter, who's trying to do just that. Kyle Benson way loose in front of him in the middle of 3 and 4. And easy work for the 28. He's able to settle through in that position. Lounslogger falls back. Will actually settle back in 3rd with a drop-off by the 64 of Scott Healy, your former race leader, now picking up a lot of struggles here in this part of the run. 51 laps in. And we have not seen any one of these drivers come down pit road other than Austin Reedy in this race. Reedy pitted around 42 laps ago. Everybody else on the same set of tires that they started. Also on the same tank of fuel. None of them came in to top off. None of them came in for an extra splash, at least in terms of the front. So this is going to be big as we're in this green flag run in this 146 laps race. As here comes Austin Reedy. Look on the inside for the lead in turn 3. And that's what you can do with 9-lap fresher tires. Austin Reedy to the race lead for the first time tonight here in Darlington, South Carolina. Again, we are expecting these drivers at the front to come in for pit road. Now, the thing is, none of them has. As Scott Healy loses the car slightly in turn 2 and somehow kept the nose straighted at 64 with a scare. And it turns 1 and 2. Here's a look overhead. Carried through too much throttle in the middle of the corner. Chased it down the hill. Was able to pick it up at the time he got to the apron. The 64 holds on, but this time will fall back dearly. He'll drop to 10th as a result of that little moment. Let everybody by. And so the 64 are going to have to try and strategize his way out of this. That is, of course, if we stay green flag racing. There's a look at 4th. Joe Sanchez, Jaden Porter. As we'll look back through the field, here's a look at Michael Newbraw settling in 14th. And actually, someone has a blacked out nose decals on his Chevrolet Camaro tonight. But with the fact that he is sporting different colors this evening, obviously we have to look at our table for the drivers that have throwback paint schemes this evening. One of them is this car in the 6 of Michael Newbraw, who's sporting a Mark Martin throwback that dates all the way back to the 90s. At some point, Tyler Murray coming down pit road, not necessarily a year specified given to us on the actual list of cars that did sport a throwback this evening. One of them, like we said, the 16 of Murray. He's on pit road and joined by Lawson Peel in the 12. Now, there are others in front that are also coming in. AJ Green, Joe Sanchez, looks like Colin Forrester, all of them coming in for service at lap 56. And there goes the 48 of AJ Green out and away. Obviously, Austin Reedy holds on to the lead. Craig Lemslugger, Jaden Porter among those that have stayed out up until this point. But it looks like the 28 will duck in. Help here from the number 54 of Brandon Banks. So both of them going to come in for service. And this is going to be an interesting stop for Austin Reedy because he's going to be, again, those 9 laps ahead of everybody around him in terms of fresh tires. Now, for the 96, I think he is still on 58-lap-old tires. He did just come in for a splash of fuel and for damage repair. That was a 5.1-second stop. So not necessarily anything crazy for Reedy. Looks like he might just be on the same strategy. Here comes Scott Healy and the number 00, Jesse Prees, just behind him, coming for service. Jesse Prees among those that are 2 laps down. And currently, as it stands, 7 cars sit on the lead lap as Reedy continues to put laps here around Darlington, South Carolina. Now, that has moved up Adam Alishire to P4. It has brought up Daniel Michel to the last step of the podium after starting on pole tonight. But again, these drivers will have to cycle out. They'll have to come down pit road, and one of them in the top 3 is the 13 of Craig Lemslugger. Now, with this 13, he came in just a couple of 100 feet ago. And you'll see it most notably with Austin Reedy and some of the others that will come in sooner enough, is that entrance to the pit lane. And we'll see it on board with the 96. Not necessarily right now, but we'll see it when he comes in at 3 and 4. And there's the gap that he has to the next car in line. That's one of the lap machines. And currently 7.5 seconds back to Daniel Michel in the 25 car. Austin Reedy will watch and see whether he comes down the pit lane this time by. Doesn't look like the answer is yes. But right here, you'll see this dashed line, and then you'll see those yellow ones at the bottom of the racetrack before it turns into a solid yellow line, and then you'll see those pit barrels. That's the entrance of pit road here at Darlington. You've got so much asphalt, and you're in that tight radius turn 3 and 4 area that it's really tough to hop on the brakes and make something happen. Fortunately, we haven't seen any of those incidents tonight, but it can be really easy to hit those tire barrels, and we saw it last season. Drivers struggling with the entrance onto the pit lane, those who fell with speeding penalties, and those who even just locked up the brakes and missed pit road entirely, had to go around another time to find their way in and be a little more careful. That has resulted in a lot of lost time and many positions lost on the track, and it appears track position might just be the biggest thing to watch for, as here's AJ Green, who has finally cycled out of his pit stop around 5 laps ago. He is now the leader out of everyone that has come down pit road already. Made that pass on Kyle Benson, also stayed ahead of Jaden Porter in the 28, as Tony Kibbett finds his way onto the pit lane. No throwback here for the 76. We've seen this paint scheme over and over again throughout the season. Colors that we cannot miss, and the 76 comes in for service, and we continue to wait on Austin Reedy, Daniel Michel, and now Michael Newbraw. All three of them have stayed out up until this point, lap 64. Brandon Gillis coming out of the pit lane. There's Curtis Kelly now trying to eye in on the number 33 of Tyler Warner. That is actually for position on the racetrack, although they are 2 laps down. That 71 now has slotted his way into P14. Will try and unlap himself and make himself 1 lap down. That fight for the lucky dog if the caution does come out at this stage of the race. Right now, though, we'll see what happens. That 78 with the bright yellow Pennzoil colors, with the throwback dating back to the Steve Park days of 1999. Curtis Kelly, well, actually, this is a 2003 throwback, but 1999, this reference photo, but still the same paint scheme regardless. Those stripes on the DEI Chevrolet as the 71 gets around Austin Reedy. And those colors with the DEI camp and Steve Park's emotional win at Rockingham the week after Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s tragic death at Daytona. And so Curtis Kelly throwing it back to Steve Park in his number 1 Chevrolet as he gets around your leader, Austin Reedy. By the way, yet to hit pit road. Him, Michel, and Newbraw are still extending their hand out, waiting for the moment to strike, either for a caution to get everybody 1 lap down or more from 4th on back, or just to hold out for as long as humanly possible. Here comes Kyle Benson, inside pass on AJ Green for 4th. Benson has been so fast tonight, not necessarily at the direct front of the field, but inside the top 5. It's hard to skim over this 10 car as he makes this pass in turn 1 over the 48. They are still reeling in also Jaden Porter in the number 28, so a 3-car battle for 4th. Again, we're going to watch up ahead with the 25 of Daniel Michel, and he continues to stay out. So, again, these drivers have really stretched it out this long. It's been really interesting. Now Austin Reedy, your leader, finally hits pit road. So here comes the McDonald Chevrolet that will hand the lead off to the California native of Michel, Michael Newbraw, it appears, also staying out. He's going to make that pass complete for 2nd. There's a 4-car train building up in turns 3 and 4. There goes Daniel Michel for his stop. He's going to make a slide in 3 and 4. He's going to be able to save it, but that is going to be lost time. Michel still trying to hang on to it. He does. And at lap 68, this possibly could conclude our green flag cycle, and that should hand the lead over to Kyle Benson in the number 10. We're still waiting for Michael Newbraw to come in. He's going to cross the line for another lap in his Valvoline Chevrolet, but Kyle Benson has control of the race. AJ Green hot on his heels right now in 3 and 4. As of the moment, Kyle Benson holds on to the proverbial race lead. We'll watch further back. Craig Lounslarger, one of the losers out of all this. He has dropped back to 6th, and while he does have a couple of lap fresher tires than the pack in front of him, it is a significant gap up to them, so Lounslarger going to have to do a lot of work as Lawson Peel has recovered finally to 7th. Him and Scott Healy trying to move around for that position. Michael Newbraw again continuing to stay out on the racetrack. So far, our longest green flag run of the evening here from Darlington, South Carolina. We'll take a moment and step away, but you won't miss a thing continuing our coverage of the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series with Kyle Benson set to take the race lead.
the best. You got him 4 abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws. Dirt Racing will be available September 27th. Pre-order your copy today.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Michael Newbraw, your race leader, pitting here at lap 75 as we continue our coverage of the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series from the virtual Darlington Raceway. Kenneth Bueno to bring you the action here on MaxSpeedTV, and we were waiting for a very long time for this 6 car to come in on pit road. He finally has as we cross the line for lap 76. Your new race leader, Kyle Benson in the 10. We mentioned that just before we took that short commercial break, where that 10 had the net race lead. Jaden Porter is, by the way, taking over second above AJ Green, who has kind of fallen off on pace this past couple of laps. And as Michael Newbraw heads in for the freshest tires of the field, he'll drop back to 13th and counting. Now, looking back, 4th on back, Joe Sanchez, Craig Lownslugger, complete your current top 5. Scott Healy is enrolling in P6. Lawson Peel, your defending champion. Remember the struggle that he had to get back up to the field after being involved in a crash on the back straightaway. He is now up to P7 on the racetrack and tailing behind the former champion in Season 3, Scott Healy, or Season 2 rather. Your Season 3 champion, AJ Green, settles in 3rd, loose out of turn 4. He'll save the race car, and now we're starting to see the fall off in each run, and that's what makes racing here at Darlington so very special. You get to see how these drivers adjust every single lap because it is not easy to drive the track. Number 1, they're driving around traffic. Number 2, and number 3, as the laps wind down and as these tires continue to wear out, the car is only going to continue to handle worse and worse and worse, whether it be a tight condition from drivers that wear out the right front or a loose condition for those that burn out the right rear. And we're seeing many different scenarios of tightness and looseness on either end of the racetrack from each and every single driver. But not many battles out on the spectrum as it stands. There's Brandon Gillis. Looks like he's going to head for the pit lane. And Gillis has had a tough race here tonight from Darlington. 19th on the racetrack, 6 laps down. And I think he did miss pit road going onto the apron, so he's going to come back onto the track in turns 1 and 2. Tyler Warner, also of note, has fallen back 7 laps down. It looks like he's had problems of his own, and that appears to be tolling damage on the 33. Now, not sure exactly when this happened. It looked like it might have been lap number 71. Here's a look at it. Oh, and right there, just slammed into the wall at the exit of turn 2. The first time we see a damage that hard inflicted on this 33. And so that's why he's on the pit lane right now. And so tough break for Warner, who towed it to pit road and did use the fast repair already tonight. So his car unfortunately pretty much done for. He's going to try and get it repaired, though, and get it back out. We're already halfway through this race, lap 81 of 146. Timothy Cook and Jesse Prees, of note, have DNF'd in tonight's event. They have pulled it behind the wall, so their races from Darlington Raceway are considered donezo. So things will continue to settle out. As there's Brandon Gillis in the number 9 car. He's adorning a throwback as well, but this one not as obvious. You'll see the colors of Square Enix and the black, blue, and white that we're accustomed to seeing on Gillis's cars. That's normal, but the design of the race car is different. This is from the machine of Bill Elliott, his 1980s Ford Thunderbird that he used to drive back in the day. And that car sported well here tonight. You can't really see it on the broadcast, but we did have that picture up. But Bill Elliott with this 9 car this evening in the Coors Light machine that he set a qualifying record at Talladega at 212 miles an hour, that infamous lap that was set a long, long time ago. And so he's also one of the throwbacks, although not necessarily as obvious as like a Kyle Benson, who's basically driving Danica Patrick's 2014 car just built into a Chevrolet Camaro. And he continues to lead this race by 0.3 of a second over Jaden Porter. Looking at the playoff conversation, this 10 of Kyle Benson has been all over the place. We've seen him in championship 5s before. We've seen him in the playoffs prior. We saw him in it last season. But remember the route that he took to get there? It was a very interesting one. Back in season number 4, when we had the race at Kansas Speedway to close off the regular season, Benson was the winner in a walk-off win to send him into the playoffs. Unfortunately, he did not make it to the Championship 5 race that season at Texas Motor Speedway, but nonetheless was able to get there regardless. The feat itself of just making it into the playoffs was enough to make this story remarkable. Tonight, he falls in the same scenario. He is one spot out of the top 16 to make it to the playoffs this season, and he leads this race at around halfway. Still a lot of work to do if you're Kyle Benson, but still, if Benson can grab this win, it will be his first of the season. It will be the 5th of his 4-wide Cup career, but one of the most important to get him into the playoffs, one race shy before Daytona. Now, Jaden Porter on the other end of the thing, he is already locked in with the win last week at Dover. And his second win would only amp up his momentum on behalf of Bacallao Bueno Racing. A driver that has been poised as a rookie and so composed as a sophomore. Now hunting in, and with a 29.941, he set a lap faster than Benson that last time by. He's going to try and hunt for that race lead. AJ Green not too far behind either. And here comes Benson working his way through a bit of lap traffic. This is the 76 of Tony Kibbett, the 99 of Colin Forrester, not too far up the road, and it looks like the 3 of Eric Schaefer. And boy, for the 99 and for the 3, they have had really tough races, riding 17th and 18th right now, 2 laps down on the track. Schaefer involved in an early incident to bring us our first caution, and Forrester just fell back, and I'm not sure whether there was a pit road speeding penalty. I believe there was, given the 42.4 second stop that he had after riding around in the top 10 or so all night long. And Forrester has severely dropped back to 18th as Eric Schaefer holds that spot in front, and they are about to be lapped again by your leader, Kyle Benson, in the 10 car. When we cross the line, we'll have at least 56 laps remaining from Darlington. This is arguably our longest green flag run of the night. We did have a couple of quick yellows in the first 20 laps, but ever since we have gone green, we had that first round of green flag pit stops, and we're going to have it again. No doubt about it if we stay green, because these drivers cannot make it to the end, although you look at the length that they made it through in that first run. They went around 50 to 60 laps or so before they finally started making calls to come in. We're going to see that in the next 30 laps or so, where these drivers stand halfway through the long green flag run the first time, and they'll have an ability to cycle things through and make things happen if a caution does not come out in the next 26 laps after these drivers come in. which if it stands true to right now, might be a lap 120 to 125. Could be where the window opens for either one of those. And so it's going to make this fight rather interesting just because we do have differences in lap when they came down. And that includes 22 lap old tire Daniel Michel in the 25. Your pole sitter tonight has yet to find his way back to the race lead in that DBR Cat Marrow, but Michel could find his way back to the front if he changes his strategy up like he already has been doing, and could find himself on the right end of a wrong situation if cautions do fly. We did see a lot of those in the last stage of last season's race at this very track. We did have a 2-lap to go restart. We extended that race a couple of laps, and then obviously came that last lap pass in turn 4 from Eric Schaefer onto Colin Forrester. So far in this race, it is looking like that is not the case. But again, one caution can change absolutely everything. Most of the field all single file. Not many battles on the track. The closest fight you're going to look at right now is for 4th and 5th. Joe Sanchez, Craig Lounslugger separated by a couple of tenths, and Sanchez closing in a little bit on AJ Green. Set a 30.244 as they crossed the line. Green that last time by with a 33.22. And this time, again, better lap for Sanchez. And an even better one for Craig Lounslugger, who is now starting to pick up the pace. He's at a 30 flat, which is very close to the laps set in qualifying, or at least those set after the first 5 or so laps in the race. Again, a testament to how fast Craig Lounslugger is at Darlington. But the biggest thing is going to be passing these drivers in front, not getting to them. And lap traffic is going to play a role. You see those line of cars going into turns 1 and 2. That's where Kyle Benson sits, right behind Colin Forrester and Curtis Kelly, the 99 and the 71. Things are going to get rather hairy as here comes Forrester. A look on the inside of Curtis Kelly. And that's not a pass for position. Kelly running in 12th, but there goes Kyle Benson through on the bottom. Will that lose him some time to Jaden Porter? It might, because he's going to stay side by side. Now underneath the number 99 of Colin Forrester, on board with Porter into turns 1 and 2 as Benson clears by. And Porter into the outside wall. You saw it as he was on the outside of Kelly for the position, trying to wiggle his car to make sure he doesn't have toe link damage, which he doesn't. He escapes calamity, but the 28 of Porter finding himself in that situation that we've seen many other drivers in tonight and in the previous editions of this race. Got a little too tight, was side by side in a place where you really can't go door to door in, and found the outside wall, and that equalizes the gap at around 0.6 of a second. And the buffer with Colin Forrester in the middle might just assist the 10 of Benson to pull away, although Forrester might give up the ground to Porter before they enter turn 3. He will, so he'll be courteous and say, hey, I'll let you two fight for it. I'm just going to hang back, run my own race, not really affect the race for the win. And so Porter probably with a big thank you, although he has dropped off 0.7 of a second to Benson, and the 10 car setting fast lap after fast lap, the fastest out of the top 5 at a 30.098. Porter at a 30.218 respectively. Here's a look at Brandon Banks in the number 54. We saw him with heavy front-end nose damage after slamming into the rear of his teammate Lawson Peel, and that caution involving Adam Alshire on the back straightaway picked up the faster pair, but Banks has kept his Chevy Camaro squeaky clean since then. And just showing why burning off the faster pair so early can really hurt your race, because then you have to walk on eggshells for the rest of the event. But for Banks, it really has been a great one. Has never led laps tonight, started 14th, but up to 8th after what has been a pretty up and down race so far for the Chevrolet Camaro. As here comes our first taker onto pit road. Lounslugger comes in. And this is a rather interesting call, as I believe Joe Sanchez also has taken a trip to the pit lane. Yes, indeed. So the 55 in for what could be the last time tonight. I was projecting it around lap 20 where drivers would come in. I guess I might just be completely wrong, because these drivers are coming in at lap 100. Now, it will give them enough time to get to the end of the race, but could you pose the question that for Sanchez and Lounslugger, if they're putting this strategy, are they just giving themselves more time to cycle back to the front when this thing ultimately comes to a close on the green flag cycle? Or are they just going to get the upper hand now before the caution comes out, where everyone else is going to have to come in and then they get track position? It is going to be merely interesting to see how that all fares out. And for your leaders, Kyle Benson and company, are they taking note of this, and or will they change their strategy as a result of it? For Benson, it has been rather unchanged. For Porter and AJ Green, they're falling in the same vein. They're all running 1, 2, 3, not really thinking about pit road right now. Neither is 4th place Scott Healy, and neither is 5th place Daniel Michel, because Michel has 33-lap old tires. He can go a little while after these guys come in before he inevitably runs the tank dry. Alternate strategies at play in the final 44 laps. Going to be 43 when they cross the line here from Darlington. Benson up by 1 second and counting over Jaden Porter. Those laps continue to side in the 10's favor. 30.236. Porter with a 30.606. And this track in the playoffs last season obviously played a role to that fight for the championship 5 when Eric Schaefer got to victory lane. It wasn't just a win for him that season. It was just an entrance into the last round at Texas Motor Speedway, where he was unfortunately not able to cap it off with a championship. But it was really a different time, where Darlington was so late in the calendar year that you really have to prep for it as a competitive playoff race, not now as a regular season race right before Daytona and then before the playoffs start. So this race has really taken a different shape. And for the motive of the drivers, you can also think it's very different. For those who have wins, they're not really caring all too much about winning this race. As here comes Benson, here with Jaden Porter behind him to come in. AJ Green also following suit. Porter almost hitting the tire barrels at the entrance of the wall. Looks like Curtis Kelly also joining this group of now 4 to come in. So at lap 104 with 42 laps to go, the main leaders have come in and have given way to Scott Healy, who will now lead this race. Him and Daniel Michel yet to make a pit stop. So things continue to shake out here at Darlington, South Carolina. And there's an overhead view. There's Adam Alishire, who I believe just came out of pit road, merged back on turn 2. There are your leaders, Kyle Benson and company, getting their set of 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles. Away goes Benson. I said that might just be an easy win off the pit lane. Porter and Green can come out soon thereafter, so they're going to follow. Austin Reedy, who did not come down pit road. He's 37 laps on his stint. He's going to now slide into 4th. He'll tag the outside wall, though, and lose a bit of speed to the next car in line, Michael Newbraw, who we did see in that last run extend all the way to the very end. And while it didn't necessarily work out in terms of track position, the 6 machine will just follow in the same tracks. He knows what's at stake. Maybe if a caution comes out, could help his case, and that means top 3 right now, all on the lead lap. Everybody else 1 lap down or more. Still waiting for Scott Healy and the rest to come in for pit road service as we continue coverage of the 4 Wide Racing Cup Series from Darlington.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it
Who wins the race? Kerwin!
iRacing puts you in the driver's seat
It is
with the
Benny
industry's leading
Olot,
sim
the
racing game.
sophomore.
Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure compete across all the divisions.
I give it all that I got.
Scott Healy in the lead of this race at lap 109 to 146. In the penultimate race of the regular season for the 4 Wide Racing Cup Series, we did see a majority of your former leaders come in. Kyle Benson now trying to overtake the 13 of Craig Laumslauger. Joe Sanchez not too far behind, and it appears Jaden Porter, AJ Green have really struggled first couple of laps of this run, especially that 48 who came out right behind the 71 of Curtis Kelly. Green with the slowest stop out of the group at 15 seconds flat everybody in that 14.5 second bracket, and Jaden Porter at 14.7 seconds directly in the middle. Sanchez has really picked up pace on Kyle Benson. Here he goes for the position. This is going to be 4-6 on the racetrack. And unable to complete the pass as the 10 maintains the ground. And we are going to wait for everybody from first through fourth to come in for service. The last car that stayed out, right here, Austin Riddy. This is going to be the fight for the lucky dog spot if a caution does come out. But as soon as Michael Newbraw, Daniel Michel, and Scott Healy hit the lane, that conversation obviously going to be put down. The 13 of Lounslager moves to the bottom. He'll bring that train with him. How about 3 wide on the front straightaway? Sanchez again eyeing in on that spot over Kyle Benson, but it has to back out before turn 1, and that will reel in the number 28 of Jaden Porter on board with Sanchez. And again, we talk about the importance of making moves on the straightaways and building up the run out of the corner. It worked in favor of Porter. It's going to work again out of 4, and it's going to work even better. Here comes the 28 with a move on the inside. He's got the nose ahead. Sanchez backs out, and Porter has the sights set on that GoDaddy Chevrolet. Porter going to look for the net race lead again as Benson stays trapped behind the 13. Or possibly grab a nose underneath in turn 3. And here comes Scott Healy. Word that he's hitting the pit lane. The 64 in for what will be the last time tonight. It looks like a rather decent pit stop. 15 seconds flat, so similar to AJ Green and the Premier Racing setups. Toyota Camry out and away, P10. And we'll merge back on the racetrack. That leaves Daniel Michel and Michael Newbraw yet to pit and yet to have this cycle fare through. Now, the good news for Kyle Benson and company, they have all unlapped themselves as Healy has come in. So for them, they're just going to wait until that 25 and the 6 come in, and they're going to have the race lead. Now, if a caution does come out, that will be rather interesting for Michel and Newbraw because they can pit, they'll have fresh tires, they'll lose track position, but maybe, just maybe, if the run goes long enough, these other guys might also come in. But you do also have to recognize that these drivers were gifted 4 extra sets of tires on the pits, 5 including the one that they started the race with. As Porter looks on the inside for 4th on Lounslager. Easy pass into turn 1. And a bit of contact there behind the 55. Trying to break through the 13. Could not do it as he knocked on the door. Couldn't break through it. And Kyle Benson now going to look for 2nd. So really a lot of gained ground here in 3 and 4. Try and look underneath the 6 machine of Newbraw, who obviously has waning Goodyear Eagles underneath that car. So Benson slots in his 2nd. And now a 19.2 second gap to Daniel Michel, and that's really just going to be a situation of waiting until he comes in. Now, this is going to be good for Benson. He's going to be able to open up this gap on Jaden Porter. And while Porter gets through Michael Newbraw without any trouble, as Sanchez looks underneath Lounslager again, it will just stall the effort of Porter, the sophomore driver, from getting his 2nd consecutive win of this season and his 3rd career in 4-wide cup racing. There's a look at Daniel Michel, where he stands in turns 3 and 4. With a lot of lap traffic around him. We talked about Austin Reedy. He has fallen back to 8th. And he is at mercy of being put 1 lap down. Brandon Banks is going to unlap himself, frankly, in turns 1 and 2. Although this is going to be pretty dangerous for Michel. He's going to strike the wall. So Banks will unlap himself. That puts 9 cars on the lead lap, and there should be more as soon as this 25 comes in. He did have a rather tough time getting to his pit stall and getting to the pit lane overall the first time under green. Saw how slow he was entering the apron in turns 3 and 4. The question is, did he learn this time by, or is he going to just do the same strategy over and over again with fresh tires near the end of the run? And we will close in on 26 laps to go on board with Michel. As there's Brandon Banks. Textbook pass on Austin Reedy. The Murray Reedy Motorsports car going to give up the spot. And so Brandon Banks will find himself in 8th. as it stands, and while Austin Reedy continues to lose ground, he's going to be at the mercy of being put a lap down. There's a car near the inside wall. We're going to try to identify exactly who that might have been, but they were stopped on the inside wall heading for turns 1 and 2. No caution will fly. It will stay green. And here's the 3-car train that we have not seen settled out quite yet. Remember that 55 has been trying so desperately to get around the 13 of Lounslauger. Well, they have brought in AJ Green to the conversation, so all of a sudden it's 3 cars in this fight for what's going to be 4th on the racetrack, but what might be 3rd overall as soon as Daniel Michel comes in. We are still waiting on that thing to officially cycle out. Scott Healy gets by. The 25 gets loose and sideways. I think he'll make it. Yes, he will. Oh, boy, that was close call for the 25 of Michel, but he comes in for his last stop of the night with 25 laps to go. And with this stop, it capitalizes a race lead charge for Kyle Benson, who takes over P1 and will have the control of this race and will try to hold on to it for his first win of the season. This is dangerous here, though, right behind Adam Alashire in the 91, who's a car that will be put a lap down if this 10 goes by. And he really needs to be careful as Porter can have the opportunity to close in. As they said, comparable lap times as they cross the line last, and the 10 struggling to find his way by the 91. This is going to be key here if you're Jaden Porter. You can take every step of the way methodically and slowly as this 10 struggles to get by that 91, because every single lap, you know you're going to catch him. The only problem is once you get within 1/10 of a second of this company, you're really going to have to do a lot alternatively to get around the 2, because if Benson is struggling to get around this 91, the 28 might find himself in the same situation. Benson, though, going to strike the outside wall, and here comes Porter to make it a fight for the lead. This is the worst case scenario for Benson, who had been dominating the last half of this race. Now with a problem, Porter hits the wall and has to wiggle the car. And that was to prevent tolling damage, at least to make sure that he didn't get any. Remember, there is a breaking point and a threshold that you cannot get by here in these next-gen cars. And it's going to hold the lead stable at around half a second. As Sanchez continues to look by the 13, he'll hit the outside wall. And is that tolling damage for the 55? The answer right now seems to be no. But no company around Sanchez, so he'll be able to hold on to his 5th place position as we cross the line for 20 laps to go. Gap still at 4/10 of a second, and Benson continues to struggle on this pass for Alashire. You look for it this time by, slides up the track. He'll put Alashire in the wall and send him out. Alashire tries to side draft, and through goes Benson with absolutely no mercy. And you could tell he was done with Alashire's stuff at that point. And that's to put him a lap down. Alashire strikes the wall again and lets Porter through. But Benson had enough of that fight against Alashire. He said, you're a car that's going to be a lap down. You're slower than me. I'm faster than you. I am not going to let you hold this up. And let Jaden Porter get every little bit closer. But Porter's doing just that. 3/10 of a second and a way faster lap time. And they cross the line. Porter just a little bit slower, but he is there. And he will not let Benson get away with 19 laps to go. There's Brandon Gillis to let the field by. I mean, we're talking about that battle between Sanchez and Lounslauger, obviously, with Sanchez hitting the wall. It's going to bring him back to 5th. And just about 4.5 seconds before you get to Michael Newbra, and then sits all by himself in 8th. Scott Healy with the car right in front. That is Brandon Banks for 7th. But no major battles out on the racetrack other than this one. On board with Porter in a 3 and 4. and just get a feel of where these drivers are running at every end of this Darlington Raceway. And 3 and 4, none of them take alternative routes. They both end up near the middle or closer to the inside. And turns 1 and 2, everyone usually takes the same line. Porter just a little bit lower there at the entrance of the corner. He flirts with that outside wall, drops all the way down. Looks like a same arc with Kyle Benson. Does a better job of keeping it off of the safer barrier. And that's why you're seeing similar lap times between these two. They're running the same line. They're not doing anything differently. And so Porter isn't really gaining all too much. If he does, he gains a couple of hundreds. But it really isn't that much of a gap that could close him in on the leader and officially make it a pass. And as they cross the line, the lap times still favor the 10. 29.702 for Benson, 29.729 for Porter. He is better than 3 and 4, no doubt about it. That's really where he's able to pick up the pace on Benson, but really things have not been swinging in his direction all too drastically. It really has just been hanging around and stagnating. Although, if you're Porter, this may be the best situation possible, because while you're not faster than him right now, there's still about 15 laps left in this race. You can still do anything in your power to get by, and maybe if you save your stuff enough, this 10 will start to hit that cliff at some point if he's pushing the car, and Porter could just then take advantage of it no matter what. Because 15 laps is still a long run. You're still racing the track. You're still beating down this race car every time you get around this 1.366 mile circuit. So for Porter, things aren't necessarily over. And if you stay in that same area at around half a second, and maybe 0.3 of a second at best, that 10 of Benson will know that you're there in the rearview mirror. He might make a mistake trying to push his car and extend that gap. So who knows what might happen. There's Daniel Michel in the number 25, by the way. When he came down pit road, he almost went for a full-on spin. He has fallen, though, 2 laps down on the racetrack in 15th. So your pole sitter will most likely not get a favorable outcome here at Darlington. And so tough for Michel, who has been so stellar throughout this year. We've seen a lot of great races out of him, and especially those that got away. You look at Auto Club Speedway that got away from him after performing so well. Road America fell into his lap, but Michel has been fast at so many ovals on this season. And you would expect another win on the calendar, but unfortunately that's not the case. He'll give way to your top 2 leaders, and he'll fall 3 laps down again in P15. We're looking forward to seeing what Michel could do in the playoffs as Porter gets loose at a turn 4. Will drop a couple of hundredths of a second, although he did set a faster lap time than Benson. So maybe the 10 is starting to reach that cliff. Maybe the 10 is starting to fall off just that little bit more as he's getting around lap traffic. Again, he had to work harder to get around Michel than Porter did. So we'll see what happens. Different lines in 3 and 4. Porter just a little bit lower, closer to that dashed line. And it remains at 0.4 of a second with 11 laps to go. Here's a potential fight for P9 on the racetrack. Curtis Kelly helping Eric Schaefer on the way to turn 1. Both of those cars working together, and looks like a clean pass for the 71 of Curtis Kelly. With that Steve Park throwback from 2003. Ron Hornaday throwback in the 90s for Tyler Murray in the 16. And Murray claimed to me before the race, he said, "I hate Darlington," and just said that he is not good at this track at all. It's one of his worst on the service, but he said he really loved the throwback paints that all the drivers came out with tonight. And if you were paying attention to the 4 Wide Racing Twitter page, you would understand that they had a full thread of driver throwbacks tonight. Well, hopefully we get to see next season that everybody runs throwbacks. There were some drivers who have not, but it is so nice to see a majority of the field in that throwback spirit. A toss back to the race lead. There is Jaden Porter closer to Benson. 0.2 of a second and a very big difference in lap time as Benson hits the wall. Porter gets loose on the back straightaway. It might even them out, but the mistakes are starting to rise out of your leaders with 9 laps to go. And Benson again strikes the wall. Porter inches that much closer. And there's lap car Austin Reedy in the way. Could that have played a factor in this fight? And really, it's a game of survival. We've seen at Darlington, attrition matters so much from drivers making solo mistakes, not by others around them, but by their own doing. Benson has hit the wall a couple of times. Porter has wiggled that car sideways a couple of times. Both of them on the edge of disaster as they cross the line. What will be now 7 laps to go from Darlington. Scott Healy makes a position on Joe Sanchez. That was quickly settled for 5th. Sanchez just continues on the free fall here as he almost hits the wall in turn 4. Brandon Banks, his teammate for Drinkin' Bros Racing, not too far behind. And for the driver of the 10 at stake, a 2nd win this season for Murray Reedy Motorsports, a first for him, and a clinch into the 4-Wide Cup playoffs. For Porter, a 2nd win for BBR, a 3rd in his 4-Wide Cup career, and one that could elevate the momentum substantially heading for Daytona and the last race of the regular season. But both of them have been wheeling these race cars lap by lap and will cross the line for 5 laps to go. For Benson, like we mentioned at the top of the show, it will be a 5th career win if he can hold on to it. For Porter, it will be a 3rd. And no lap traffic in the way, so it could just be an absolute dogfight. We saw this back in season number 3 when Benson led so many laps to win this race. He beat Craig Lounslager in a fight like this. Lounslager had been around half a second back. He closed in a little bit. They both got side by side for a moment. But no matter what, that 13 could not break the 10's focus in the waning laps. And we might just see a mirror image as Porter makes a mistake. He drops back 3/10 on the lap counter. And he is 6/10 of a second and counting from Benson. Could this be the moment for him to run away? You got to keep your head down if you're Jaden Porter. You cannot let that mistake rattle you all too much. You really have to be consistent. Make sure you can make the most out of these final 3 laps. What is these dwindling miles here at Darlington? Benson trying to get back into the playoff hunt in clutch fashion, sporting a Danica Patrick paint scheme that has been one of the brightest all night long, no doubt about it. But the speed has picked up as the night has fallen. The 10 of Benson will capture 2 laps to go as Porter remains in that 6/10 of a second distance bracket. And there's a look at the fight in turns 1 and 2. Currently 7 cars on the lead lap. Sanchez, the last one. Alishire, the first car, 1 lap down. But if Benson crosses the line, he will not before the caution waves. We will have ourselves a green-white checkered restart. It's Austin Reedy on the outside wall. Oh my goodness. This race has not been closed just yet. Austin Reedy finds trouble in turns 3 and 4 and brings out the yellow involving Joe Sanchez. Here's a look at how it all happened. And a big dive. Reedy just destroys the rear end of Sanchez's car. And Sanchez, while he does pick up damage, it is not as bad as Reedy, who goes for a spin. It started right here where Sanchez hit the wall at a turn 2. And Reedy just dove the car in there and went up to the outside wall, got hooked, and that's where he went sideways. Your leader, right here at the moment of caution, saw that car face the opposite direction, and now knowing that he's going to have the fight of his life. As Jaden Porter, AJ Green, and company come down pit road. And just when you thought this race would not end under green-white checkered circumstances like it did last season, boy, we in for a show. Jaden Porter looks like 2 tires on his stop, 9.5 seconds. AJ Green going for the typical 4-tire stop. Same deal with Craig Lounslager. And there's Joe Sanchez, who was involved in that incident. Also on the lane as well. Kyle Benson, not the only driver to stay out here with 2 laps to go. It'll be Scott Healy, the one to join him. So they'll lock out row number 1. Well, we'll see if Healy ends up making a decision to come down pit road after all. There's Austin Reedy and Daniel Michel, so it looks like Healy's actually going to follow in their footsteps. So Benson is now going to be the only driver out. Oh, and that's a death sentence for Benson. You do not want to be on old tires here at Darlington. We saw a half-and-half split last season, I recall. And that's really what led to Eric Schaefer's pass on Colin Forster in the last lap. He was able to get by a bulk of the competition who were also on old tires, but did have a couple of restarts to have that happen. So we could find ourselves in the same position. However, it is going to be very tough for Jaden Porter. 2 tires might be the winning call. AJ Green and everybody else have decided to slap on 4 while Benson stays with the set he's got. And mind you, the field was given 4 extra sets of tires throughout this race. Benson, I'm surprised he didn't take it, but probably thought that everybody second on back would not come in. They would stay out just to hold on to track position. But Benson now going to have to play heavy defense. And that heavy defense might not be enough because this track can eat up tires as good as any on the schedule. And when you've got fresh rubber, you're going to be quicker by a large amount. And it is going to be a really big difference once we take those first 2 corners on the restart. And Jaden Porter just might be looking at his 3rd career 4-wide Racing Cup Series win and his 2nd in a row. If Porter wins this race, he would be the first driver since Lawson Peel to go 2 in a row in a season. Nobody has done it in Season 5. And the last time it happened was in race 14 and 15 at Atlanta and Homestead of Miami. So it has been a while since we've seen a driver go 2 in a row. Jaden Porter turning up the intensity as we'll get a restart, our first attempt at a green-white checkered with 2 laps to go. We'll explain the rules just before we get going. We have these 3 attempts to get the green and then get the checkered. If the leader gets to the white flag before a caution comes out, we'll run it all the way to the end and that race will be official. However, if a caution does fly and people do crash before the leader gets the white flag, we'll stack them up and do it all over again. The worst case scenario, we exhaust all 3 attempts. Caution comes out before the leader gets to the white on the last attempt. And then whoever is the leader at the timing loop, when the caution waves, will be the winner. Benson and Porter, your front row. Benson on old tires. Porter on 2. Everybody else on 4. Green flag in the air with 2 laps to go. And Craig Lounslager finds a way around Porter, who struggled on that restart, and somehow Benson holds on to the lead. Crash out of turn 2. Brandon Banks and company in the inside wall. Scott Healy around. Will the caution wave? Yes, and we'll do it all over again. And heavy damage for Healy. This race isn't over. So we'll see what happened to the 64. But I believe it was a problem that happened right in front of him. Actually, no, just got loose on his own accord, overcorrected the car, and then got slammed by the 42 of Bishop, then goes into the 16 of Murray, into the 91 of Adam Alashire, and then here comes Tony Kivett. Oh, just a tough hit there as 64 was trying to come back up the track. Another look on board from Healy. I believe there was also another problem at a turn 2 as well. The 54 gets loose, hits the wall. And for Porter, too, I think also found trouble near the safer barrier. So there's Healy getting a big hit from the 42 of Bishop. He spent all this race just surviving up until this point. Here's a look from Bishop. They were 3 wide, and that was tough right there. Curtis Kelly hooking the 55 of Sanchez. And that's an abysmal hit. It looks like the 64 will definitely look for that fast repair. As there's your leader, Kyle Benson, holding on to the lead, at least of what he's got. He was fortunate that a caution came out at around turn 2, because if not, Lounslugger and company might have been on his tail. But really the thing I noticed when they got the green was that Lounslugger and Porter didn't really gain all too much ground on the 10. It looked like Benson was just able to hold on despite having 47-lap-old tires, and it was probably going to come to an inevitable close for Benson in terms of the race for the win in 3 and 4, but just did not have enough time. Caution came out at the right moment, and so Benson gets to hold on to the lead and to glory for a little bit longer. So we'll extend this race again. Craig Lounslugger taking over second. That might have been the most pivotal pass here on the restart, because he got around Jaden Porter. That 13 is on 4 fresh Goodyear Eagles. Remember, that 28 is only on 2, and those are only right side tires that the 28 put on his car. Everybody else also has 4. But for Lounslugger to make this happen and to try and get his first win of the season and his first since Charlotte of season 4, that would be big. And for Lounslugger, he's already into the playoffs. As it stands, before tonight's race, he was 142 points above the cut line. He was well and set, even after Daytona, if that race goes poorly, to make it into the postseason. He would be fine, but a win would really change his momentum, would really change his trajectory, and might make his outlook on the playoffs a little different. You go into points racing with a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, just trying to hope that what you can do on the track if you don't get a win is enough. But as soon as you get that checkered flag, things really change, and you have a little more relaxation. You perform with less pressure on yourself. That might change when we get to Bristol, no doubt about it, but at least for right now, that mindset could just help transfer into the next couple of weeks as we are doubled up and ready for green-white checkered attempt number 2. Kyle Benson, your leader on the outside lane of row 1. Lounslugger to join him on the inside. AJ Green and Jaden Porter, the 28 and the 48. Going to be in the second row. Joe Sanchez still in 5th, with Brandon Banks alongside in P6. Those two DBR teammates lining up the third row. Adam Alashire is in 7th. Scott Healy has gotten the fast repair, and with the attrition and cars a lap down or more tonight, he's only going to restart in 8th. So Scott Healy not really going to be out of a run for the top 10. Lawson Peel, who had been hanging low all race long, he is 9th. And Curtis Kelly is the last one in this top 10. And it looks like Scott Healy was able to restart in 8th just because everybody else behind him are a lap down. So again, we'll watch and see if this 10 is able to hold on to the lead, or whether that 13 is able to notch P1 and take a checkered flag. Both of these drivers without a win in this season. The drivers behind them with at least one. And a lot on stake. Second attempt at a green-white checkered early goes Benson. We're back under green. And watch the side-by-side battle for second. AJ Green and Lounslugger going at it in 1 and 2. Green gonna hold on for the moment, and he'll have to check up. Contact with the 13 and the 28. They go around. Porter's into the wall. Peels up the track. Caution is out again. Oh, no. And that takes out a chunk of the front runners. Porter, Lounslugger, and many others go sideways at a 2. And it starts with Porter hitting the wall in the middle of 1 and 2. But right here is where it all culminates. They just check up. The 48 cannot hold on to the throttle. He knows he's going to hit the wall. And the 13 tries his dearest to save the car. And does not. What a hard hit for Jaden Porter, who will not be out of this race. I don't believe he's used a fast repair tonight. But just hit the wall. Came traveling down the track. Joe Sanchez sideways as well. That's a hard hit. And then comes back up the racing surface. Eric Schaefer and company. Those who were trying to get out of the way. Here's a look on board with Lawson Peel. it's so narrow again at the exit of turn 2. When you go side by side, one driver has to back out at some point, but when you're exiting the corner, it's really tough to make space for each other and also keep momentum. They really had to slow down. That's why you saw that 48 check up substantially just before that 13 was going to exit the corner with him. And at that point, Porter was checking up, and they all just get collected together. Now, that's going to move AJ Green to second. Kyle Benson is currently running on 52-lap-old tires, and he is on the apron. Presumably to save fuel, yes. Nothing but silence on the cockpit of his Chevrolet Camaro. So for those watching here on MaxSpeedTV, we thank you so much for spending your Wednesday evening with us as we close off the regular season of the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series. We'll have our next one at the virtual Daytona International Speedway. That race will come your way 2 weeks from tonight in mid-May. We'll be under the lights at the World Center of Racing, and we'll end the regular season. We'll decide those drivers that are going to join the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series playoffs. We already have a good amount of them decided already. 10 different winners this season, and then we'll kick it off in late May at Bristol Motor Speedway, the last great Coliseum. Charlotte Roval right after that, Pocono to cap off the first round, and Pocono really going to be a wrench in that round, especially as an elimination race. We really did not see Pocono as a factor in the playoffs at all, at least in recent memory. Then comes Charlotte, Talladega, Phoenix, and then our championship finale at Homestead Miami Speedway. That's what's on the cards for Kyle Benson if he can get this win. And we talked about for AJ Green. And for those behind this 10 car, they already have this win to lock themselves in. AJ Green, the winner at the virtual New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Brandon Banks with the win at Talladega. Adam Alashire not with a win this season. Neither does Scott Healy, but Healy has been in and out throughout the season. Not sure if he's officially eligible. Joe Sanchez with multiple wins. Loudon Slugger with 0. Porter with 1. Curtis Kelly with 0. That's 9 cars on the lead lap. And with that most recent caution, we did have a wave around from the 71. So Lawson Peel, 10th on back. Those put 1 lap down or more on the racetrack. All right, we'll try again. And this time, what might be the last green-white checkered attempt of the evening. Kyle Benson needs at least 1 more caution to declare himself a winner. AJ Green and company on fresh tires, trying to steal it all away. And Benson again going to choose the outside. We've seen him go rather early on the restarts. Could we see the same? He'll try to get as big of a gap as possible going into 1 and 2. It's helped them the last 2 restarts. Might see it this third time by. Pace cars down. Benson with the discretion to lead the field. He'll go right at the Xfinity sign. And we're back under green with 2 laps to go. Turn 2 has been a trouble spot. We'll watch and see whether anyone else finds trouble. For Benson, he holds on to it. AJ Green, no fight for second. Now they're going at it for third. Contact between Benson, or either Banks and Alashire. They make contact and they'll save it. And now they'll go around. Jaden Porter to the inside wall. Here comes Green with a challenge for the lead at 3 and 4. Now the caution waves. Race will be over. AJ Green wins at the Lady in Black. That will do it. And here's what happened. To end this race, it's Jaden Porter involved, and such a heartbreaker for the sophomore. As he'll hit the wall at 2, and as they're trying to decide amongst themselves around 4 wide for position, he gets into the 64 of Healy, who goes up the track into Eric Schaefer. And that crash is enough to settle it. AJ Green made the pivotal pass in 3 and 4 to win the race, and here's how he did it. and he moves the 10 out of the way, puts him in the wall. AJ Green moves on by. Right here's where the caution waves and those lights come on. And that is it. AJ Green, the winner here at Darlington. And for the second season in a row, this race comes down to a last lap, last corner pass for the win. You could just imagine the joy behind the wheel as AJ Green brings it along out of turn 4 and will celebrate for just the second time in Season 5. The Alex Bowman Dr. Pepper paint scheme takes victory here at the Lady in Black. And AJ Green will celebrate accordingly. Winner at Darlington. What a win by AJ Green. Continues the celebrations as this race will end after 161 laps and it ends under yellow. Here's a look at the full race results from Darlington. AJ Green, your winner in that last corner, last lap pass on the final attempt at a green-white checkered. Kyle Benson falls just short. If he had a caution come a little bit earlier, he might have been the winner tonight to put him in the playoffs. This will be a huge points game, but we're not sure whether this will be good enough to get him into the postseason just yet. Joe Sanchez ends up rounding out your top 3. He's had an up-and-down race tonight and some contact along the way. Adam Alashire brings it home in 4th. Brandon Banks ends up as the last one in your top 5. Another consistent finish for Banks. Jaden Porter, who was so close to the race win and to the race lead in that last green flag run, he comes home in P6. 7th is where you'll find Curtis Kelly. Craig Lautenslager ends this race in P8. Lawson Peel, your defending champion, 1 lap down in 9th, and Michael Newbraw, the last one in your top 10. Here's the rest of the field, 11th through 20th, starting with Scott Healy, who got involved in that crash on the last lap to bring out the caution. Christopher Bishop is 12th, 2 laps down. Austin Reedy in the same vein, and 13th. Daniel Michel, your pole sitter, just struggled all night long for the most part. He ends up 14th. Eric Schaefer, your defending winner at this race, is 15th. Tony Kimmett is P16, 4 laps down. Same with Tyler Murray in 17th. Brandon Gillis is 18th. Colin Forrester 19th after a struggle on pit road. And Tyler Warner rounds out your top 20. Then here are the final drivers who all DNF'd this evening. Timothy Cook in the 98, Jesse Priest in the 00, Dylan Herven in the number 36, and Kevin D'Elia, who did not make a lap. Neither did Herven in the 36. Well, AJ Green continues his celebrations from the virtual Darlington Raceway, and he had to do it in unbelievable fashion. AJ Green is your winner by just 1 corner. We'll bring in the driver of the number 48, and we'll get his perspective as he's the winner for the second time in Season 5. AJ, just give us your thoughts on this, because I know that was crazy. Green-white checkered attempts. You're getting by Kyle Benson. You move him out of the way, and you win under caution as they crash behind you. How was that?
I didn't realize it at first. We were talking. He said he was trying to back up the corner. I didn't even realize it. I just went in there hoping I would stick to the bottom, and Kasha came out, and I was in front, and I was just screaming like I don't know what happened, and it was crazy, but the whole race was just fun, mayhem, the usual.
Very chaotic, but if there was one thing that was for certain among the group of, I'd say, 3 heavy hitters, you were absolutely one of them. You, Kyle Benson, and Jaden Porter, just the fastest cars near the end of that race. And now, how big of a difference that is, where you go from super long green flag run, 2 green flag pit stops, and then a caution at the end. Were you expecting that kind of chaos to come the way of the field, or did you just feel like green racing was really the key to this event?
I definitely thought green flag racing. I didn't have the greatest pit stops. I spun on the entry on the first one and was really slow on the second. The only thing that I was thinking it was gonna go green with 10 to go. I was not expecting a caution, but I did tell my teammates, I was like, what if there is a caution? And I was definitely surprised Benson uh, missed the cone. I thought he was gonna pit, and he pitted really late, and I think it kind of set up his doom.
You know what? I think here, AJ, we're probably going to call you the green, white, checkered pass king. Because I remember a while back, you and Colin Forrester, teammates at the time, you passed him on the last attempt of green, white, checkered. You got that when you stole it from him. Tonight, you do the very same thing to Kyle Benson. But I think the overarching thing is that you've got 2 wins. You already had one to lock yourself in. This one for extra reassurance. How big is this for you before the final regular season race at Daytona?
This is huge. The regular season points leader is way out far. I don't think I can catch him. I think it's gonna be Lawson or Joe battling for that. But going momentum going into Daytona and previously winning it last season is huge. Definitely really huge.
I was going to say, you come off of Daytona winning that race, so who knows, maybe 2 in a row in the cars, but an absolutely phenomenal race, and I also got to say, I love the throwback with Alex Bowman. I know it's a BK Racing scheme. A lot of people kind of ignore that team and its existence, but you showed it out. You showed it very well this evening. AJ, before we let you go, anybody you just want to give a thanks to for tonight's race?
Yeah, shout out to broadcasting. Shout out to my teammates. Shout out to my parents. Shout out to Tyler for running the league.
All right, well, AJ, we'll let you get to it. We'll let you bring these celebrations and continue them here at Darlington. On behalf of our entire team, thank you so much for talking to us, and we'll see you at Daytona in a couple of weeks. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Huge win for AJ Green in the number 48. It brings that Dr. Pepper machine with its always one-of-a-kind slogan on it to a one-of-a-kind win here at the track Too Tough to Tame. On the other end of it was the 10 of Kyle Benson, who falls just short of the win by 1 corner. Kyle, I know that must be really heartbreaking. You ran your heart out all night long, and it came down to the green-white checkers. What was going through your mind, not only in that final attempt, but in the other 2?
It sucks. I had a shot, and had to try to. I dove it in really hard, into 3, and it wouldn't turn, and AJ was right behind me, and I didn't think he was gonna cut under me that quick, but caution came out when he was out front. It happens. It's racing, battled all day long, and didn't think I had the speed like I did, but changed something with that second stint, and we were rolling. I thought I had it, coming into turn 3, and caution came out. So, like I said, it's racing. It sucks, but we have to go to Daytona with a must-win mentality and try to go and win there.
And one more opportunity to get into the playoffs. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But I want to talk about this race, I think just in its entirety, because when you were out front, just kind of gave me shades of that season 3-1 where you were able to get that win and where you were so fast. What were the keys to holding out the front here tonight and to be as fast as you were with this next-gen car?
It's just practice. I ran a lot of laps here. I like Darlington. It's one of my favorite tracks. It was a bit of a curveball because I'm used to just, sweeping 3 and 4. But with these cars, with how unpredictable they are, one on the bottom was the best way around because it was the shortest way around. I was kind of hoping I got that season 3 magic and burn her down in victory lane. But it's tough. It's definitely a hard pill to swallow. But, I had a blast all night long. And, AJ just played it right. I had to stay out. It was either I stay out and they all pit, or they pit, and it was vice versa. So it sucks. I wanted that win really bad. It's been a hard few weeks, and a win would have been in the good direction. But with everything going on, man, I'll take whatever I can get. Good points day, and I can't complain. So, 'tis how the cookie crumbles, I guess.
P2 here from Darlington, now at Daytona. We know you're a clutch driver who can get a win in the last race of the regular season. We saw that a while back in season 4. Will we see the same heroics in a couple of weeks?
We're going to throw the kitchen sink at it, Kenneth, like usual. We're gonna throw everything we got at it, and we're gonna see how it goes. If I can work with some teammates, get some teammates up there, we'll ride. I know I got the. You're gonna have to turn me, or I'm gonna have to wreck myself to get a win at Daytona. So, but like you said, I did it before. Maybe we could do it again. It's just gonna depend on what happens next week, and we're gonna see how how it rolls. I love Daytona. A lot of fun. Been there. A lot of fun too. And like I said, we'll see how it goes.
Hey, but also the Murray Reed Motorsports cars, I think they're rather unstoppable at the super speedways. You and Austin Reedy, you guys hooked together. It looks like it really is a duo that's hard to beat. It's a second place finish here at Darlington. Kyle, just before we let you go, is there anybody you just want to give your appreciations to for tonight's race?
Everybody at Murray Reed Motorsports. It's like I said, it's been a tough few weeks, and with everything going on, they've helped me out a lot. And this league, man, we're probably in the best we've been in the last few years, and it's just great to see. And we got some good stuff coming up next season. Can't wait to show off some of that once Tyler lets me. So we're kind of waiting for that. But everybody comes to the 4-wide every week, man. It's like I said, this is probably one of the best leagues, in my opinion, in iRacing. If you want to, we're looking for people. So if anybody watching wants to help us out, come right along. We could gladly have you. So other than that, man. I told myself I don't make playoffs, I might just join in the boost. So that might be an incentive for you, and you might talk to me a little more depending on what happens here in the next few weeks.
Hey, we always welcome you in the booth. We said that the first time when you were here at COTA. We are always welcome to have you in the booth, but we would love to see you run for the postseason no matter what. Kyle, of course, on behalf of all of our team here at MaxSpeedTV, myself in the booth, thank you so much for taking some time. Congratulations on the second. We'll see you at Daytona for the last race of the regular season.
I appreciate it, man.
That's Kyle Benson, second here at Darlington. We'll talk to the last driver in our top three. That is the driver for Drinkin' Bros Racing and Joe Sanchez, who's sporting a Ward Burton livery tonight. First of all, Joe, gorgeous paint scheme. You really did this paint scheme right. I mean, the colors, the scheme, the font, perfect. But I want to talk about this race, which was far from perfect near the end with everybody crashing, going all over the place, but you finished in third. How do you feel?
A lot better than I guess I would have if that Reedy didn't kind of make contact with me there. I just burned through my tires there battling with Craig with, I don't know, 30 or so to go, and I was just trying to hang on and ended up getting really loose off of 2 and breaking the right front toe link. So I was just trying to nurse it home and get a top 10 finish there, and then that happened there in turn 3. Yeah, I mean, I'll take a third place finish rather than my 7th, but I think if I could have kept track position there, in the top 3, I could have had a much better result.
Nonetheless, it was very hard fought in those closing laps, and I saw you over those green-white checkers. You were trying your best, and everybody was trying to scrapple for position. But now when you move forward, you with a couple of wins this season, you're locked in, but looks like you, Lawson Peel, kind of tussling closely around for that regular season championship. Now as we head into Daytona, moving closer to the playoffs, how has your mindset changed in that way?
Definitely is going to be tough to, maintain that points lead. I don't think I have that large of a lead anymore. So, getting that regular season, I'll get those couple extra playoff points, which are going to be so vital come the elimination races.
It's going to be crucial there going into Bristol, and obviously we're going to see you a part of those playoffs, so that's going to be a lot of fun. Joe, before we let you go, on the podium finish here from Darlington Raceway, anybody in particular you want to thank?
Thank you for putting on this awesome broadcast, and then all the admins for putting on this awesome league, as well as the entire Drinkin' Bros team and our sponsor, Paul's Setup Shop.
Well, we certainly appreciate the time as always, Joe. Thank you for joining us. Congratulations once again on the podium, and we'll see you at Daytona in a couple of weeks.
Thanks.
So that is the driver of the 55, Joe Sanchez, who closes off the top 3 here from Darlington Raceway. Boy, that was a doozy. We had a lot of crashing near the end, a race that really pivoted on a place that we really weren't expecting to after how green the race had gone, but we close off this race and we head for the final one of the regular season. We go to Daytona, the High Banks, the World Center of Racing, you name it. We'll have the coverage in a couple of weeks' time. Race 20, the final one of the regular season, will decide a champion of that regular season, and then we'll get the drivers in the 16 group to make it into the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series playoffs. Actually going to correct myself. That is next week, May 10th, and then we'll take about a week off before we return at Bristol to kick off the playoffs. So it is going to be really fun to see how things shake out. Obviously, who's going to get into the playoffs and the big storylines heading for the elimination rounds from Pocono, Phoenix, and then all the way to the very end at Homestead, Miami Speedway. So that would do it of our broadcast of race number 19 of the 4-Wide Racing Cup Series in Season 5. For Tyler Murray and everyone from the admin team and race council at 4-Wide, from all of us at MaxSpeedTV, and for myself on the broadcast booth, Kenneth Bueno, we'll see you at Daytona in 1 week time. But for now, congratulations to AJ Green, win number 2 in the season.